Welcome in, everybody, to leading off right here on Fantasy Pros. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia. It's Dan Harris, and it's you. And we're taking you through last night in Major League Baseball and today's slate. We got some afternoon games again. It's that Thursday getaway day. Dan and I are fresh from the alternate site, ready to rock and roll. We've got a return, too, of Christian Javier back up from the minors. I just like saying Christian Javier, which is very exciting, isn't it, Dan Harris? It's nice to have some pitchers going out there and some exciting young things. Plus, I thought about this today. We're getting closer and closer to Super 2, and I think maybe today we even start to talk a little bit about our expectations, maybe about some of these young players we've heard so much about that we'd like to see kind of come up and make an impact maybe in the month of May, because that is just around the corner, and now might be the time, Dan, to stash them.
Yeah, I'm a huge Alex Kirilloff fan. So I've been waiting for him, obviously Jared Kelenic. So we've got those guys going. But as we get into it, we're going to start to see those guys. I know teams have to be a little careful about basically being like, okay, great, we've got our extra year of control that starts before then, because I think they can call them up now immediately already and have bought that extra year of control, not the Super 2 deadline. But I expect that in the next week or two, we're going to start seeing some call-ups.
Yes, let's hope so. We like that. And obviously last night we liked Tyler Mahle. He was good.
Yep.
He was very good. Of course, the bad was the bullpen of the Reds, which blew that W for him, which was torture. He had 53 or 51 FanDuel points, I think, in my lineup last night. Yeah. And I remember going, oh, this is looking great. This is fantastic. Yep. Throw a nice big fat W on there. We're good to go. And then Amir Garrett said, not so much. Not so much. That was bad. Junis was bad. Anderson was pretty good last night, but obviously Savali was the other piece, and that game got snowed out. You got to love the snow games in April, which makes you wonder with this, weird identity crisis of baseball sometimes, why they're doing this in April. It seems like every year in April we get such crazy weather stuff, and then on top of COVID and all these other things, maybe it would just be better to start in May and go straight through. I know people is like, oh, you can't lose the integrity of the 162 game season, but I don't know about that. With the way nobody can stay healthy through the first 25 games of the season, it feels like maybe it's something we should consider or start to understand a different format or way of doing things. I keep saying my perfect world, Dan Harris, in Major League Baseball would be going through the All-Star break, and then after the All-Star break, making a tournament for the rest of the year. A tournament to get you through the World Series that ends the first week in October, and then you're done. That's what I would like to see. I think it would be a cool structure, and all of a sudden, August baseball would really mean something instead of just kind of being the dog days, and kids are off and they can watch baseball. What do you think of this idea that I have?
I think this is our last podcast together, because I hate this idea. I'm out. No,
idea.
Go to the 154 game schedule, something like that. There doesn't have to be 162 games. Go to 154. It was like that for all of history until 1961 or whatever. So go back to that. Try to schedule as many games as you can out on the West Coast and then domes to start. Because look, I'm here right now, and I'm hoping my kid's Little League game gets canceled in New England because it's 35 degrees out right now. So I get it.
Like a metal bat in 35 degrees. Exactly. That is the best. That is the best feeling. Getting jammed on a metal Easton in 35 degree weather is heaven.
The worst.
And for everybody out there, see what I just did? I negotiated with Dan.
Yeah.
I started with way over here, and then I got to 154, which is basically all I want anyway. That's it.
Right.
That's all I want. We see all of your comments. We're going to get to you, the Peanuts and Cracker Jack committee over there. We love you guys who are watching the show live here over on Fantasy Pros on our YouTube channel. So, Dan, let's kick things off. Let's get into it. Let's start, of course, with the injury news. Dinelson Lamet, 2 whole innings, right? I mean,
yep.
This is kind of like the least surprising thing ever. Am I right? I mean, this felt like all of us going into the season just said, no matter how much the discount, it's just probably not worth it because it's not going to be good. He's got the forearm tightness, and there you go. And it's sad because Lamet was so good last year. So what's the ripple effect of this? Because I think that's the most important thing. Are we going to get Mackenzie Gore? Are they just going to piece it together? What do you think is going to happen here for the Padres in the next few weeks?
Well, first of all, I think that we can say that probably Lamet is done for the season, right? Like, I mean, I think that's just kind of what we're looking at right now. I think that Gore is going to come up sooner rather than later and be a starting pitcher. I do think, though, that they knew about this, right? I mean, this is how they prepare their entire offseason. That's why they signed 40 million pitchers. Right now, you've got Weathers in the rotation. Maybe he lasts for a little while longer. But if Gore is out there, I am picking him up now because I want him on my team for when he gets started. right away. So for me, I think it increases the timeline for Gore, but I'm not still expecting him to be called up immediately or anything like that.
All right. Looking forward to the next one here. Gio Urshela exits with lower back tightness. The Yankees get another loss there. The Yankees, man. Ooh, the last place Yankees. Yes, I know one of our listeners, Melissa Ackerman, she made a fun little things like, boy, you really enjoy saying last place Yankees, don't you? Because I know she's a huge Yankee fan. And I said, yes, I do. Yeah. I don't get to say it very often, so I'm going to take the chance to say it. Justin Upton leaves with an apparent leg injury. Just a cramp.
He's okay, though. Yeah,
just a cramp. It's just a cramp.
Let's hope. Yeah.
Ronald Acuna, they say, could return Friday. We kind of said this going into Monday morning. We said, look, the Braves only have 5 games. If you want to start somebody else instead of Acuna this week, you can. If they've got 7 games, just take the ABs in a head-to-head. Yeah. I understand not wanting to sit Acuna, but, sometimes you look at the schedule and that kind of dictates what's going on. But we'll see. If he does come back Friday and plays the full weekend, that would be nice. I want to talk about the A's for a second, if we could, before we even get into some of the good performances. 11 in a row. Dan Harris.
Yeah.
And the offense is heating up. My goodness, those A's look pretty good, and it was not a good start. It was not pretty, but it looks like things are rocking and rolling for the A's. So what do you think the special sauce is right now?
Look, they're always better than the sum of their parts, when Matt Olson gets hot in particular, which he is right now. He had 2 more home runs yesterday. Mm-hmm. They just kind of have these guys. Suddenly you're like, oh man, I really don't want to face Seth Brown in this lineup. So I guess it's a lineup right now that you kind of fade against because, I watched that start because I'm pretty invested in certainly Frankie Montas, who didn't look good, and Kenta Maeda, and there was just nothing. They were just, they were on everything. So
27 runs in that game last
I guess it's kind of a lineup at this point to avoid. I wish Matt Chapman, who's my guy, would get going a little bit, but other than that, it's kind of something you got to pick your spots here when you get your pitchers going against the A's.
And, we haven't had to use a lot of A's here in our in April. I can't remember the last time we talked about the A's lineup. They're just not getting a lot of these late games. They're in a lot of these afternoon games of what's going on. And they were traditionally a very good value, especially Olsen and Lowry. I think we used them once or twice, but I'd like to see the A's back on that main slate pretty soon. Major League Baseball, come on, let's go. All right, some notable performances from yesterday, including that Twins incredible run output. Donaldson 4 for 6, first dinger for him. Hooray, that's good news. Nelson Cruz 2 home runs. Yes, it is confirmed he is not a human. He is all cyborg. Byron Buxton, he's back. And another dinger. 6 dingers for Buxton. Ooh, you know what? The Robles train derailed, but that Byron Buxton train we were on, man, those were the 2 trains that were running. And this one's pulled into the station where the other one's off the rails, but this one feels real good.
He hits the ball so hard and so consistently that it's just, if he stays healthy, I don't see any path to him not being a dominant fantasy player this whole year. And that's not even taking into account any potential stolen bases, which we're not really seeing just yet. And I'm fine with that if he's going to be healthy, because if he's going to, average almost 97 miles per hour of exit velocity, I'm totally fine with that. So again, there's always the injury risk, but for the most part, I'm just completely buying this.
Francisco Lindor had his first home run with the Mets, who was actually in my lineup yesterday, and I did it 2 days in a row where I had somebody and I took them out and they went and hit a home run. It's Pete Alonso, so I'm mad about that. I am just mad. I'm in my head. I told you, I don't know what's going on. I just need to get off the schneid with this home run call, and then I think everything will be fine. But Javier Baez with the big grand slam in that one, and the Mets bullpen imploding and all that good stuff, that was really fun. Trevor Rogers, 7 shutout innings. Boy, oh boy. That's been terrific. I guess the question is, can you sell the Trevor Rogers stock right now? It feels crazy. It feels like some people might be wanting to sell high, but is there such a thing as maybe buying high on this guy and just riding the wave?
I'm not sure I'd buy. His ERA is 164, so I don't think I'd buy. I don't think I'd buy that high, but I'm also not running out to get rid of him necessarily if I can. I would be willing to, if I rostered him, I would be willing to put feelers out there to see what I could get, because I do think this is the prime time to sell high on pitching, because you've probably got guys out there with Kenta Maeda, with Frankie Montas, who are like, I don't know if I can trust these guys anymore. If you're going to basically be able to acquire a guy who's off to a good start, where everything looks good under the hood, like you have with Rogers, I think that's worth exploring. So he's a guy who I'm probably holding if I roster him, but I would see if I can sell high for somebody a little more reliable, because Rogers is good, but he's not quite this good.
Would you trade him for Luis Castillo?
Yeah, I mean that's not anything where I'm anywhere close to like in value. And I just published my trade chart last night. And look, this is the way, and you guys can probably tell if you listen to this podcast at all. Like I move at a glacial pace in terms of
But that's
how
smart because that's baseball. Baseball is an overall look. It's a very 5,000 feet kind of like, okay, where are, is it 5,000 or 50? I don't know how many. It's a lot of feet. That's all I know.
Yeah, whatever.
But that's true. You have to kind of step back. It's a 6-month season. It's very different. You're playing every single day. So that makes sense. But at that glacial pace, you still think right now you would take the long-term Castillo.
Not anywhere close right now to doing it. And look, my guess is if Trevor Rogers has another good start next week, he's going to really increase in value. But we've got to see Castillo struggle and maybe me find a reason for the struggle beyond just he's just not pitching well. We've got to see that for like 3 or 4 more weeks before I'm anywhere close to considering that sort of swap.
All right. Max Scherzer was good. 6 shutouts, back-to-back good starts for him. Very necessary, a 1-0 winning for the Nats, 9 Ks for him. Eflin's pitched very well this year for the Phillies, but as good as the ERA is, which is under 3, the K per 9 is under 7. I think that kind of corrects itself over time. And as we mentioned before, Tyler Mahle was just fantastic yesterday. 9 more strikeouts for him. And what's fun to watch him is he just kind of more of a dart thrower kind of guy. He just kind of... it's not a big mechanical kind of motion with a lot of bits and pieces going on. He is very direct to the plate. I love that. I think it kind of sneaks up on hitters, which is something that I really like. He's very quick and explosive to the plate, and that is refreshing. I think there's a lot of guys who have different mechanical things, and maybe this is something that's evolved over time for him. But whatever it is, it's working right now. And if Castillo can get right, with him and Gray, all of a sudden this Reds rotation could be very good, and maybe the Reds are better than we expected.
Yeah, I was certainly fading the Reds coming in.
Me too.
Right? Yeah, because you just didn't feel it. But the fact that Mahle is kind of doing what we hoped that he might do, and you're right, Castillo hasn't been good, but I still see no reason for it yet. So I'm still expecting a bounce back. And with Gray back, yeah, they do have the makings of a decent team if they can fix that stupid bullpen where Amir Garrett just basically blows every save.
Oh, so frustrating. Look, if Lucas Sims or whoever else, TJ Antona, any of those guys just start picking guys up, just do it. To be
fair, that was actually Garrett's, I believe, first actual blown save last night.
I know, but he had that thing against the Pirates last week we talked about, which isn't his fault, but at the same time, it's his fault. So, all right, let's talk about a couple Royals right now. Jorge Soler, 3 for 4 with a dinger and a double. That's good.
Yep.
Again, he's a streaky hitter. You just have to ride these waves. Carlos Santana stays hot. Homers again. That's important. Ian Anderson. Look, going out there pitching at Yankee Stadium is never easy. It was chilly last night there too. I give him credit for kind of soldiering on. Let's talk to the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks, see what's going on here. Let's see here. Trade Castillo and Biggio for Garrett Cole. Andrew Rogers wants to know. If you can get Garrett Cole for Luis Castillo and Biggio, you do that. Again, pause the show. Come back, listen on demand to stop. Someone dropped George Springer, says Brant Cox. Use a waiver wire on him. Yes, use the number 1, just empty the tank. What are we doing here? What is wrong with people? Like Dan said yesterday, if this was June and all of a sudden, George Springer missed 2 weeks, nobody would be dropping George Springer. I mean, that's just crazy. It's madness. Yes, go add him. Why do people do this? All right, and I'm getting a lot of questions about Herman and Christian Javier today on Twitter, and I'm seeing them in here. So I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. I'm okay with starting Christian Javier against Alex Cobb because I think that bottom half of that Angels lineup is a little susceptible. He's also at home. Christian Javier's got good K potential. I like all that. Herman, on the other hand, I'm wait and see. That's my approach. I'm good with adding him, but waiting and seeing is what I want to do. How about you on those two guys? Because I'm getting a ton of questions, and they're in the gallery as well today.
Yep. I'm probably not starting either one of them. But again, I'm pretty cautious with guys like this, whenever they've got some sort of weird schedule thing. And it's not as if they were must-start options anyway. I am adding them for sure, but I'm not starting them yet today.
All right, Merchant 66, trade Juan Soto for Corbin Burns. Oh my goodness, man, this is tough right here. This is about roster construction. Like that's what this is to me. If you've got incredible offense and your pitching's terrible and the other team in that league is vice versa, I can understand this. Here's the thing I would say. I always want the dominant pitching in head-to-head points, especially those that favor pitching points. In head-to-head categories, I kind of lean that way too. Look, I can't say no to, I mean, this is elite for elite, so I'm always okay with that too, because that's what these guys are. But to me, this is more about roster construction than anything else when you pull off a blockbuster deal like this. And this is that. This is definitely a blockbuster deal for Merchant.
So I would not kill anybody for doing this trade if they're trading away Soto. But for me, the only pitchers I would consider trading Soto for are DeGrom, Bieber, and Cole. And again, you'd be like, well, Burns has been the best pitcher in baseball. Of course, he's been absolutely incredible. He's not this as great as he is. He is not this good. Like, I don't know, Joe, where you have, I think I have him ranked as my 8th pitcher. Now
he's top 10. Yeah,
he's top 10.
He was top 12, I think, for me going into the season.
Okay, so you were already higher on him, by the way.
Yeah, I was a lot closer, and that's sometimes worse because then you're like, oh my goodness, I was so right. Is this too good to be true? And you start to second guess a little bit. But again, to me, it's the back end. Like in August and September, I have no concerns about Soto. Hopefully the shoulder thing is not an issue. That's the only other thing too, is the health.
Fair.
The health thing, look, it's fair. It's just about roster construction, but Dan makes a lot of good points. Typically the position player is the better investment than the pitcher, but right now there's so few pitchers that are, out there taking the ball, and nobody's been as dominant. Maybe DeGrom is the only guy, in Bieber you could put in that same category. Cole's right on that peripheral too. But I mean, this guy's been that good, and it's hard to say no. This is the best one. Brendan Tuma, who is our own person here at Fantasy Pros. Yeah. Dan doesn't know him. I do. I know. See, Dan's like very high up level at Fantasy Pros. I'm sort of more the man of the people here over at our little network.
Right.
And Tuma wants to know, who's more of a clown for their recent performance? Me for drafting Giancarlo Stanton everywhere, or Aaron Boone for his overall job as a manager? I'm going to say push. Here,
what is Boone supposed to do? What do you want to do? They have no pitching, and their offense is being held to 5 hits or fewer every single night. I mean, that doesn't really fall on Boone to me. But Stan looks terrible. But that whole Yankees lineup looks terrible, and they're not going to look terrible all year. Relax on Stanton. Relax on Judge. LeMahieu doesn't even look that good. Gleyber Torres, there's talk of maybe it was just a columnist who said it, but talk of potentially optioning him for a little bit. Come on. I don't know.
This guy hit 30-something home runs 2 years ago. I know,
it's overreaction city. Everybody
buy everywhere. Buy Gleyber Torres everywhere.
That's what I would.
And Mike Mayer, by the way, who also works for us, he says, it's you, Brendan. You're the clown. So there you go. All right, let's talk about guys we might be worried about. Kyle Tucker, just 2 for 25, hitting 169. I'm not concerned. Are you? To me, it's just a slump. He's a fine hitter. And that lineup has been all over the map because guys, no Altuve, no Alvarez. Then they were playing in Colorado, so they couldn't play Alvarez anyway. So it was just like, I would just wait, give it time. If you could buy him, go buy. That's what I say.
I don't understand why Tucker is not really walking right now. He's walking 2.5% of the time, which obviously isn't good. But what is he batting? 169 or whatever it was? Mm-hmm. He has an expected batting average of 281. Nobody. If you shouldn't panic no matter what, especially that. Relax, everybody, relax. No problems with Tucker at all.
Are you worried at all about Jake Junis after yesterday's outing? The 5 earned runs.
Okay, so let's make it clear for a second with Judas. Okay, I roster him in a couple spots, but I was doing it for what I thought would be a 2-start week next week. I don't even know if he's going to get the 2-start week next week at this point, just because the schedules are so weird. I
was just doing it to put myself through college.
I did not start him against the Rays. Now there are a lot of Jake Junis is not a guy who you plug in there every time. He is a guy who added, and I'm not dropping him. I think he gets Pittsburgh next week. I'll start him there. His stuff isn't great, but again, he added a cutter, or he changed the slider to a cutter. His cutter is really good. It's a really good pitch. It barely allows, it's got a sub 150 batting average against. So I think that Junis is a guy who I still think you can start in the right matchups. Against the Rays, just not a team I'm throwing Junis against. Next week against the Pirates, I'm definitely throwing him out there.
Yeah, and the Rays, look, Brendan Lau had a good night last night. Joey Wendell. Yeah. Joey Wendell's like a surprising little player always. I feel like Joey Wendell's one of those guys, I feel like if you're a contending team, you'd love to pick Joey Wendell off of a roster because he could play everywhere. He's gonna be that kind of guy who just somehow shows up in these moments where you need him to. And sometimes you just pick up Jake Junis just because you need the money. It's just something what happens there.
And with Joey Wendell, you can't think of his name without thinking, or at least I can't, without thinking of that old Mr. Wendell.
Mr. Wendell. Arrested Development.
Can't do it.
That debut album, just want to say, 3 years, 5 months, and 2 days in the life of. Outstanding debut album. Could never be duplicated. After the second one wasn't as good, but that first one, score. This is a really good question, by the way. Charles Bell asked here in the Cracker Jacks group here. He wanted to know, I'll kind of find it here. Chris Bassett. Would you drop Chris Bassett and pick up Gore? And this is fascinating because this is like the difference of the mid-level pitcher that's not spectacular, that you just know Chris Bassett's going to take the ball every fifth day and just be a guy, versus the upside of Gore, but the unknown timetable. Personally, I'm just going to stick with the dude right now, just the guy, because I don't know when or if Gore becomes the guy that they move to bring in a John Means, or because they're all in. I don't know. All I know is I think right now I want to not get too far ahead of myself. So I'm going to stick with Bassett for now, but your pitching is great. I can understand this move.
I'm making that switch mainly because I'm not really starting Bassett in a league. I mean, his K percentage is really low. It's funny because I talked to a couple of our guys. He's a
pitcher. He's not a fantasy pitcher.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. He's not a fantasy pitcher. And it's funny because I was looking, Joe, in like the AL versions of Labor and Tout, and his price was significant. And I couldn't understand why. I know AL and I know the pitching isn't that good, but still it was Chris Bassett. Like, he wasn't going to do much. So right now, I don't know. He's got a 4.4 ERA, whatever, a 134 whip, and he doesn't strike many people out. So for me, he's not really a guy who I start in mixed leagues unless you're in like a 20-team league. So for that guy, I'm just letting him go, and I'll wait on the upside of Gore because, again, I do think he's coming up sooner rather than later.
Fernando in the galleries taking advantage of my wrestling markism by screaming Gore into the chat. That's right. That's right. I got you, Fernando. And thank you for answering all the questions we don't get to, Fernando. You do a hell of a job there. All right, let's talk for a moment about Kenta Maeda and Montas. Look, to me, this is just a weird game. Like, this one just got out of hand. Like, I scrap it. It's frustrating more for Montas than Maeda because Montas has been inconsistent. So that's the problem. It's like you've seen these blow up starts and these bad ones. So it's getting difficult right now with Montas. We're in a bad spot.
Yeah, I think I'm not that panicked yet. I mean, the Twins, I had said yesterday, I was like, wow, they look a little out of sorts coming off the COVID thing. They didn't look out of sorts yesterday, and really everything looks okay with him. He's just not getting as many ground balls as he usually gets. That's his big thing, right? Because he got the sinker and he's got the splitter. I think that'll correct itself. So again, 2 good starts, 2 terrible starts. Not really that worried about it. It's a little bit of what Montas is. I think things will get better. Maeda, mildly concerned, just again because of the fact that he relies so much on the off-speed stuff, and he made a big change into limiting his fastball last year and getting into the off-speed stuff. And I worried that hitters might adjust to it a little bit, and I think they kind of are. So, but again, I'm not going crazy. I'm not dropping him a ton, and I'm still throwing him out there every time he's on the mound.
We'll try to get to some more of your questions, and we definitely have some DFS stuff to talk about before we wrap things up today. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody and thank our sponsor of today's leading off, and that's Manscaped. That's right. Trusted by 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement. The Manscaped movement. That's right. You know why? Because it's got that advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 3.0, all the technology, all the lab coats, all the scientists working there to make sure that your male grooming experience is up to snuff. That's what we've got here. It's got the LED light. It's got 7,000 glorious RPMs of quiet stroke technology. And it's affordable. And get this. With the code leading off, you get 20% off plus free shipping thanks to our friends at manscaped.com. So you got no excuse. Don't be a hairy animal this summer. Look good. Take care of your business. All right. And meanwhile, the business will take care of you. So once again, go to manscaped.com. Use 20% off code leading off. Get that free shipping. Nobody likes to pay for shipping. Nobody. Dan Harris hates to pay for shipping. He gets so mad if you make him pay for shipping. He's like Hulk. He just starts going crazy. He smashes things around the house. It's very upsetting. So, free shipping, 20% off, leading off, Manscaped. Go do it. Your balls will thank you. All right, let's get to a little DFS here, if we may. Short slate today. So, once again, kind of keeping it simple like we did last night. We try to keep it simple on these short slates, and then Amir Garrett goes and does that, but whatever. Good chalk today, Boston. And here's why. We mentioned that Seattle, that lineup's a little beaten up. We mentioned how much that lineup strikes out. And dare I say, the cash game arm is going to be Walker Buehler, and everyone's going to have Walker Buehler. But Dan, he's not struck out more than 4 guys in any start this year. I'm not feeling that. Yes, he's probably got good win equity, and I'm starting to interview myself, which I hate when people do, but I am. He's got the win equity. It's the safer guy. Sure, all that looked good. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm fading it personally, and I can't believe I'm saying this even more. But Pivetta at 8.2 and Javier at 7.3, these are two guys I think you can get enough strikeouts. I think there's win potential in both of these games for them, considering the matchups they've got on the other side. And I think I'll take my chances there. And maybe it's more of a tournament night than a cash game night because there's no great cash game option. Maybe you just do that. But to me, I look at Houston, I look at Boston, I like those lineups. I like the weather in Boston too. It's like 14-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to right field. Joey likey that. So that's kind of how I see this pitching slate. How do you look at it? Because not a lot of options here.
Yeah, this is a terrible pitching slate. I mean, it's a short slate and nobody's good. You're right. Buehler is the obvious play, but he's expensive. He hasn't been striking that many guys out, and he has a terrible sort of opponent in that he's got to go against the Padres, so it's not good. I do like Pivetta. Again, the wind is blowing out, but Pivetta, what did I say? It is in New England. It's like 10 degrees here. That's not good for bats usually. Sometimes it's not good for pitchers, okay? Because sometimes they have trouble gripping the ball. But I think it's going to be fine. It's at least sort of,
40
sunny
degrees
right
at game time, they say.
It's 40 degrees at game time. Yeah. So it's not, the wind is going to be blowing out as well to right field, apparently. So that's not great. But still, Pivetta has shown a lot of strikeout upside. I don't trust Justin Dunn. I think the bats on the Red Sox side are going to do enough to give him good win equity. So again, I don't think this is a cash game night because I just don't feel comfortable enough with any cash game lineup. I do think it's a tournament, and I do think that Pivetta is probably going to be my guy. Another reason is because the price difference, you do get a saving, especially on FanDuel, you get a savings with Pivetta from Walker Buehler. I think it's $1,600, but I don't know if that's significant enough to get most people off of Buehler. And so it might be that Pivetta is going to be a little underowned in tournaments. So that's where I'm going tonight.
Well, and Vegas also has the Red Sox with the highest run total of anybody.
They're
the only one at 5, and they're 5.5 almost. So, look, it's also going back, like you said, about Justin Dunn. It's more about the Mariners right now. Ty France banged up a little bit. I don't think he'll be in the lineup. You got strikeouts from Evan White all the way down, potentially, in this lineup. And I look, Trammell's had his moments. Dylan Moore's had his moments lately, too. Haniger, we've talked about loving. But I think it's more just, can we get out of here with a victory and some strikeouts? And I think the answer is yes for Pivetta. It might not be perfect, but Christian Javier, I wouldn't. That's another guy, too, especially on FanDuel in the single pitcher when you're just getting that. And I'll tell you what, on DK, my approach would just be pairing both of those guys who, in terms of price, Javier's 7.3, Pivetta's 8.2. You can go up and get all the Red Sox in that 5 to 6 range, and they're expensive. The Red Sox are super expensive. You get a little bit of a break on some guys. By the way, I just want to talk about how good Xander Bogaerts has been, and everybody was so worried about him. Remember that draft stock falling because of the little shoulder issue? Boy, was that a massive overreaction. So, look, tonight, Boston, if you want to stack Dodgers in the lineup, that's okay. Houston, I think, is a good look against Alex Cobb tonight. Once again, don't get crazy. There's a little bit of value there with San Francisco, as always. They got a lefty on the mound, but we talked about it last week, too. Yastrzemski has good numbers against left-handed pitching. 2.9 for him, 2.7 for Slater, 2.4 for Posey, 2.1 for Flores. Ton of value there. Vasquez for the Red Sox at 2.8. On DK, you got Miles Straw if he's in the lineup. Brandon Nimmo if he's in the lineup. Two guys will have low roster percentage because they're not 100% healthy, but Nimmo's 3.7, Straw's 2.5 at the top of that order. If they're hitting leadoff, both of them are worthy of a look because it's, again, just a lineup builder with the extra at-bat potential. So I like all those guys. Anything else that you see tonight in the slate?
No, not really. I mean, I'm going to Boston for sure. Again, even though it's cold, I do think against Dunn that sort of, overtakes it. And I'm willing to go after some Dodgers, righty bats, like bats if you can get him in, assuming that he does play. Turner for sure, and Chris Taylor is a guy who I like again against the lefty weathers. But that's really where I'm going.
Now, we promised before we wrap things up here, talk a little about the Super 2 guys, and there's one other thing I want to get to about Marcus Semien as well. But, for all the Wander Francos and Kirilovs and all the guys in Gore that everybody's already on, here's another name, Jarren Duran from the Boston Red Sox, 24-year-old kid. I'm looking at the landscape of the outfield for the Boston Red Sox, and I say, why not at some point? This guy is going to get a call-up, and if the Red Sox continue to play well, there's no reason to not continue to force the issue and say, hey, maybe we're going to be better than we thought, and we're going to get Chris Sale back, and all these things might work out. Keep that name in mind in those deeper leagues if he's not picked up. Is there anybody else for you that you think is a sneaky ad right now as we kind of start to look a little bit further into May and get a little, I always like to be proactive instead of reactive to these things.
Yep. So I would say no, and I'll make a quick differentiation. The one thing is you've got the Chris Bryant, I get to gain an extra year of control if I keep you down for 10 days or 2 weeks or something like that at the beginning of the season. That's where we are passing now. That's when I think guys who are very clearly ready and can contribute, like Kirilloff, like Kelnick, are able to come up. The team has bought an extra year of control. There's also the Super 2 deadline. That's usually late June, early July. Again, that's not a firm date because that sort of depends on what percentage of players are actually up in the majors. That's something that we are a couple of months away from. So I think the guys like probably Franco is my guess. Those guys are not coming up yet. So I think to stash them now is probably too early because you're going to need roster flexibility. So for me, it's the guys who I think the extra year of control was the big driver. That is Kirilloff. That is Kelnick. Might be Gore, something like that. So he may be up again with the injury. Other than that, though, I'm a guy who stashes prospects like 3 weeks early, not like 2 months early. So I think for the most part, we're not going to see a big onslaught of guys until either late June or early July.
One more note, Marcus Semien, his BABIP is 178. I did a little work on this. It's going to get better. So go buy him everywhere. He's still at the top of this order. Just go do it. We'll talk about it later.
I do want to say that I think Biggio batted leadoff yesterday, and he does look for all of Biggio's many flaws. He does walk. He gets on base. Sure. I don't know whether or not they're going to stick with that or what they're going to do, but the Blue Jays are going to be okay.
They're
I mean,
scuffling.
I have
there
concerns
will be a hot
about
streak where they win 8 in a row, and we'll all be like, "Oh, look how good the Blue Jays are."
Yeah.
And you know what? Also, the thing that we're not talking about, they're still not playing at home. They're playing in Florida on the home games. They're all over the place. They're a team without a home. And last year, they were in a great hitter-friendly environment when they were at home out there in Buffalo. And Florida is not the same thing. Not the same environment. Just putting that out there.
Don't insult Dunedin or whatever it is. Also, Springer will be back at some point, maybe within a week. You know, that's kind of what they're thinking. And if so, it's going to lengthen that lineup and it's going to make the whole thing a little bit better.
Absolutely. That's why they went after him in the first place. All right, home run calls of the night. I'm going to go first before Dan can be right again. I'm going to go with Rafael Devers tonight. That's right. Let's go against Justin Dunn. Wind blowing out, 40 degrees. Let's go. My boy Devers. Who you got tonight to go yard?
I'm going to go with Justin Turner against the lefty Ryan Weathers. So, you know, I have a soft spot for Justin Turner anyway, but I think he goes yard today.
Big Red. Gotta love Big Red. All right. Also, don't forget that Ronald Acuna jersey is not going to give away itself. Go over there to the FantasyPros.com/MLB contest. Go to Apple Podcasts or CastBox. Take a great review, a screenshot of the show that you made, not somebody else, that you made. Make that review. We're getting closer and closer to our review plateau where maybe we'll do a little something special for y'all. But I'm telling you right now, go there, drop a review, go to FantasyPros.com/MLB contest. Upload that screenshot, fill out the form, and just like that, you're entered to win a free autographed Ronald Acuna jersey thanks to our friends at pristineauction.com. And don't forget, free shipping. Dan Harris loves free shipping. 20% off at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Dan, any final thoughts for today?
No, I want it to be warmer, and I want all my pitchers to not get destroyed. That's all. Let's do that.
That's a very simple man like that. That's what I want to. That's all we can ask for. All right, that'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Dan Harris, I'm Joe Pisapia. We'll see you next time, kids.